go wrong. That's some kid. 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 I see you. That's some kid. 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 That's some kid.
Hey, welcome back to Some Kid. Thank you for going on this journey with us. We are on principle number 6, and principle number 6 is sacrifice. This one is an incredibly tough one for teachers to talk about, especially in this day and age when teachers are being asked to do the jobs of 3, 4, 5 different professionals all wrapped up into one. I think a lot of times as teachers, we hear the word sacrifice and we say to ourselves, no, thank you. And also this new generation of teachers, from what I've seen, I'm old enough to have seen a couple new generations of teachers. You've seen several new generations of teachers. This new generation of teachers, when I'm seeing them interact on social media, a lot of teachers are saying like, look, I don't want to sacrifice anything for this job because it's overwhelming already. And so we totally understand that. And so the idea of sacrifice in a topic like this is really difficult to engage with. But at the same time, I think on a certain level, if you go back thousands of years, if you go back 100 years, there's something about, and I've talked to students about this, there's something about the educational profession that's sacred to a degree, about schools. Everybody remembers the teachers that they've had over the years. But not only that, there's a level of respect in community traditionally. Now, some of this is eroding, but traditionally in communities, again, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, there's been a great degree of respect for teachers in society. And yes, some of it comes down to their knowledge base, what they know, what they can give students. But no matter how far back you go, teaching, there's a degree of it that is synonymous with sacrifice. And it's part of what comes with the field. People know that teachers, the best teachers aren't just there to instruct, but the best teachers are there to transform kids' lives. And so to talk about teaching without talking about sacrifice, you just can't do that. But then also, this is what makes Charlotte's Web a classic novel. If they had just stopped it there with Charlotte writing in Webs, it would be like, oh, that's a cute story. But seeing Charlotte sacrifice for her friend, it not only has an effect on Wilbur, but it has an effect on everyone, including the reader. And so as we dig into this, these are really difficult chapters, but the whole point is that your discussion group can dig into what sacrifice looks like in your context as a teacher. So just a brief summary. In chapter 16, they head off to the fair together. Charlotte, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead to page 125. They're at the fair, and they put the crate in the fairgrounds. And Mrs. Arable says, that's some pig. And Lurvy says, he's terrific. And Fern says, he's very radiant. And so what you see now, this whole identity thing coming full circle, they are now calling him, these humans who used to have all the power in the situation, they were going to turn him into bacon. They now are saying, this is who he is. Like the identity is now affirmed in Wilbur. And so as we're moving into this chapter, it's looking like things are done. But then on page 126, Mr. Arable says, yes, he's a wonderful pig. It's hard to believe that he was the runt of the litter. You'll get some extra good ham and bacon, Homer, when it comes time to kill that pig. And so this is just that point where Charlotte has done so much for him, and still it's not enough. Like they're still, at the end of this, they are just so dense. They're calling it a miracle,
right?
But they're still going to eat the miracle. And so Charlotte is like, how do I get it across to these people who he is? Charlotte has made the obvious choice to go to the fairgrounds. She didn't have to, but she finally decided she would need to in her wisdom. And so they arrive at the fair. Wilbur passes out because he finds out they're going to kill him. We meet another pig, and I'm going to skip over chapter 17 because you're meeting this other pig named Uncle. And then this is when Charlotte sends Templeton out to get a newspaper clipping? Yes. And on page 140, Templeton says, The word he picked is humble. And she said, that's Wilbur all over. He's not proud and he's near the ground. So they find that new word, and then I believe they take off, which leads us to the last chapter, chapter 19 in the section, which is the egg sac. This is where Charlotte, she's created her egg sac. She calls it her magnum opus, which means her life's work, the greatest achievement she's ever created. And so this is where we get to the topic of sacrifice. We already said that Charlotte, she chose, and she knew she had the power to say no. And because of her love for Wilbur and her children, she says yes, she's going to do what she can for him, which is, by her estimation, spinning one last web. And so she spins that one last web for Wilbur. It says humble, and then she has this magnum opus. And one of the ways that I wanted to talk about this, especially when it comes to sacrifice, is, as you know, because you raised me to be this way, I'm a very creative person. And so being in education in this field has been very difficult for me. Number one, because it's in so many ways, it can be, and increasingly so over the course of my career, it's become much more of a cookie cutter career. You need to do this. You need to read the script. You need to, and so they're basically forcing creative people out of the industry or out of the career field. They don't want us anymore. And so it's very difficult to be in a career field in which like creativity and originality is not appreciated. There's no value metrics for that. It's just, are you following the script? What are your test scores at the end of the year? That's the only metric. Whereas I know that in past years, there were teachers that I had who, it's not that they cared less about the test scores, they cared about the test scores, but they cared about transforming students. And that's like, that was their number one priority. And so when you have people who are like that, they lean in, the system just doesn't recognize them. It doesn't even recognize the sacrifice they're making, because staying after school for 3 hours to help students do some sort of project or give them a space where they can have their club after school, that stuff doesn't always translate to test scores. And so we're in this weird space as teachers where even the sacrifice that we want to give for our students, it's not recognized. It's not valued by those who control our jobs. And so, man, how do we exist in this space? So all that to say, I've had a lot of difficulty as a teacher, especially as my career went on and the field changed, in the sense that I have things that I've wanted to accomplish. And in my case, it was everything lessonry. It was creating creative lessons that made kids come to life. But building that on the side while also raising a family, while also teaching full-time during the day, there's just so many, it's just sacrifice. And you're torn. Which direction do I sacrifice in? And so what I really appreciate this is that you see that tension within Charlotte. Charlotte has the capability of writing in webs, but she has to decide what's right for her and what degree of sacrifice that she's willing to make. And I'm just one of those teachers. I know everybody has different opinions on this. I do believe that sacrifice is a key component of being a teacher on some level. I understand the idea of drawing boundaries and saying I have set boundaries, but there are just times when, and it's a case-by-case basis, when you say sacrifice is called for. This is going to cost me an extra 10 hours, or this is going to cost me this, by my estimation, this is what it's going to cost me. And it's always going to cost you more than you estimate, right? As a teacher. But there are just times when you feel it in your spirit and you say, I have to be the difference maker in this particular situation. I know my principal's not going to care. It may even annoy my principal that I'm helping. The principal is like, why aren't your lesson plans submitted? Why didn't you respond to this email? Like all this stuff that's just like, oh, like, do you not see the transformation?
You are my son.
Oh yeah.
Because I struggled in the same way.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
I did.
Yeah.
Those weren't my strengths.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are strengths for some people, and those are especially strengths for micromanagers who try to control things a lot. I'm not saying everybody who's good at email or everybody who's good at putting in their lessons or is that type of personality, but with the way education's moving, with the way administration's like what is rewarded in the administration scale, it's really tough because people who excel at email, and people who excel at getting the paperwork in, those are the ones that naturally fit in those positions. And not even saying that in a derogatory way.
And that pressure is put on administrators too, because administrators who used to be more people persons, people friendly teachers. I mean, in my early career, if I was having a struggle with a student, I had administrators where I could just go in and sit down in their office and complain and say what a horrible day I had and how difficult it had been. And they would really listen to me. Yeah, there's no front. There was no like, I would feel like, oh no, I have to have my classroom under total control. Yeah. I didn't feel like that at all. But then administrators have had the same thing done to them. Yes. From the top down, where they're like, you have to have so many teachers who are this, so many teachers who qualify as that. And they're very much subject to the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I mean, that's so true that we would be, it would be neglectful to say that even the role of principal or administrator hasn't changed when it comes to sacrifice. Yeah. That some of the people who had the best experiences with their principals were principals who went above and beyond and principals are usually best equipped to not just empower students, but to empower an entire family. That's a lot to ask for a teacher, but a principal can pull in school resources or say, hey, I have a connection with this member in the community and I can leverage my position as principal to help you. Those are things where, and again, I say this with a degree of regret, but education is it's becoming more about liability. It's all about like preventing lawsuits. And so when it comes to things like sacrifice, you just can't, there's just lines that are drawn by law now that are just, by district policy now that you just can't sacrifice as much as you would want to, because it's just, no, that's, if it's taken away from instructional time, like you don't necessarily have time to pull a student out in the hallway and say, hey, I can tell you need 5 minutes to just decompress or talk about this. The question then becomes, what's happening with the other 30 students? Is instruction happening with those other 30 students? So being able to invest in the one so you can go back and then the community, in my opinion, would be better off for it by investing in that one, making sure that they're set and then bringing them back in. Even that is called into question because are you sticking with the pacing? Like if you're not sticking with the pacing, if you're not with the script. So, I mean, when it comes to sacrifice, Charlotte presents us with an interesting paradox because Charlotte is a hero. Charlotte embodies everything that you would want in your hero teacher. Like the teacher that you would want is a teacher who goes above and beyond for you, not to just do it for the sake of doing it, but for your best interest. In this particular case, Wilbur will die if she doesn't. And so she makes the ultimate sacrifice and she says, I'm going to spin this web while also having my magnum opus and let's see what happens. And so this is really for your small group and discussion guide when it comes to the topic of sacrifice. This is what we want you guys to talk about. And there's no clear answers for this one. There's not. And even in the season of life. I struggle with it. Yeah. In every school situation, teachers are struggling with it right now. Yeah. Yeah. And it's different in every season of life. You can be a completely different teacher in the first 5 years of your teaching career than you were in the second 5 years, and the third 5 years, and the fourth, just because of how the other variables in your life change. And you kind of have to, speaking to identity, you kind of have to assess what you can give, what degrees of sacrifice you can give in a particular season. And there are some seasons that call for more sacrifice and some seasons that call for none. You are sacrificed out. And so that's what we want you guys to debate. We can't give you that in your situation at wherever your group is meeting. We can't tell you what level of sacrifice you're giving. We can't tell you what level of sacrifice you need to give. But what this book does is it gives us a model for if this premise that I presented of sacrifice being in some way synonymous with teacher, what does that look like in your context? In what ways have you had to sacrifice? What ways are you sacrificing? What sacrifices are you like, I just can't do anymore? That's the topic of discussion for this particular section is. Where is it healthy for you and where is it not healthy for you? Yes, absolutely. So get to it. We will see you for our last episode, which is episode 7, here in just a little bit.